Okay, we are live. I'm super excited. Hey, friends. Hello. We are live. Happy Friday. I'm Lisa Hetrick. I'm so grateful to you for joining me today on the live. I see people coming in. We also had a little chat time in the chat before we got started with the YouTube live today. I'm super excited. I'm going to be sharing a really fun card with a twist. And we're going to do all of this in an hour. And I'm going to have some fun sharing with you a watercolor technique using re-anchors. And I'm going to talk a little bit about liquid watercolor. In the last live last week, we talked about watercolor pencils and hot press paper. Today, we're going to talk about liquid watercolors and liquid mediums and cold press paper. So I'm going to say a quick hello. Hi, Gail. Hi, Tracy. Hi, Cherie. Hi, Gloria. Irma, so many fun friends joining from everywhere. It's super exciting. So grateful to you for joining me today. Just double checking over here. And yes, we are live on YouTube. So that's perfect. Hi, Denise. Okay, we're just going to dive right in. And I'm going to start with sharing the supplies. Hi, Wilma, Irma again. Everybody's just kind of popping in. This is just kind of exciting. I like to see everybody pop in and not miss anything either. I know there's a bit of a delay on YouTube, but we're learning and we're getting it down. So I hope you're having a great Friday. Hi, Pam. Okay, we're going to start with, I'm just going to do a quick walkthrough of the supplies. And all of the supplies are listed down below in the description. So if you are catching this on the replay, everything is down below that I'm using in today's tutorial. Hi, Sue. So I'm going to go ahead and go down to the down camera, do a quick run through of the supplies, and then we're going to get started on the card and the lesson for the technique today. So let's go ahead and dive in. Okay, so let's just start with this. So here is the card inspiration for today. So this is using the Choose Grace stamp set and the new sentiments that are in the Gina K Designs kit. So super fun. So here's my card inspiration. And then I wanted to kind of do a little bit of a mashup. Hi, Joan. Hi, everybody that's coming in. So I wanted to do a little bit of a mashup of these two sets. So we've got Whimsy and Wonder, and we have Choose Grace. So here's Whimsy and Wonder. This is my stamp set with, both of them are my stamp sets with Gina K Designs. This one came out in January, and this one is out, just came out a week ago. So I wanted to do a mashup. So if you've been following me for a while, or if you're new, welcome. But I wanted to share that all of my sets that I designed for Gina K are all like in proportion to each other. So you can mix and match and mash things up in your collection. They also work very well with other stamps that are in your collection. So today we're going to mash up these two stamp sets. I really wanted to play with some of the leafery elements that are in here and play with this heart, what I call like a floral pick kind of a thing, this heart shape. So that's what we're going to do. We're using these two sets, and we're also using this sentiment set, this brand new sentiment set. I'm not sure which sentiment I'm going to use yet. So these two cards are the inspiration because I'm using, I love that, see that leafery there, and we've got that pick, that floral heart pick. I want to kind of put that into the mix here. So here's what I think we're going to end up making. And then after I finished making this, something came in the mail and I decided that I was going to use it in the card project today too. So we are going to have fun. We're going to do some watercolor techniques with the re-inkers, and we're going to do a floral spray coming out of this super fun cup that's in the Choose Grace stamp set. So I'm going to move all those out of the way. I showed the stamp sets. Here's the cardstock that I'm going to be using. Oh, Patty just said I'm waiting for my order for Choose Grace. That's fantastic. Then you'll have lots of video tutorials to go through to give you some good ideas. I love that. So super fun. Gloria also said, she just said, this is one of the things I love about your stamp sets, mixing the elements. Yes, I try to think about that when I'm designing the stamps, and mixing the elements so that they're in proportion to each other so that you can use them across your entire collection. So, Sue just asked about the sentiment set. Lee says, this is sentiment set in the kit or is it sold separately? This is the sentiment set that's in the kit. And I know that the kit is sold out right now, but this next month, this will be separate. And I really liked it because it's called So Many Sentiments, because it is just that. It has so many sentiments, and they're kind of on the small side, so you can kind of mix and match the kind of cards you want to use them in. So I really like it. I tend to not put, as you all know, as you may know, I tend to not put a ton of sentiments in my sets, because there's so many amazing sentiments that come out in the Gina K line, that you can mix and match. Plus, you probably have a stash of sentiments in your stamps at home. So I kind of went off a little bit about sentiments there. Okay, so I'm using Passionate Pink cardstock. In my sample design, I used Innocent Pink. But I decided for this final, I want to use Passionate Pink. But you could use any of the cardstocks that you want, or any color combination that you want to create this card. I'm just going to be using Passionate Pink. I'm also using some Ready Cut watercolor. In the last live, we talked about the hot press Ready Cut watercolor. Today, I'm using cold press Ready Cut watercolor. And I'm going to talk about the difference between the hot press and the cold press. And because the technique that we're doing today is washy watercolor, we're going to use some cold press paper. Okay, so I have that. I have a piece of the Passionate Pink cut to an A2 size card. Okay, so that's ready to go. And then I also have my my cold press watercolor paper cut using the Master Layouts die. So I've pre-cut that. I love this Master Layout stitch die. I use it all the time. So that's what I'm using for these two pieces. I've got another piece of watercolor paper. This is for a little bit of a surprise. This is something I just decided to do this morning and add into the live, or yesterday when this super fun thing arrived that I'm getting ready to show you. And I have some Gina K Designs layering white cardstock for all of my other card elements that I'm going to be adding. So those are all of our cardstocks. So let me just go ahead and quickly go through the inks that I'm using. So I have Passionate Pink, I have Tangerine Twist, I have Innocent Pink. So I'm using these three colors. I'm also using a Turquoise Sea. I'm using Fresh Asparagus, and for my black, I'm using Obsidian. So these are really bright, springy-like colors that we're going to have some fun with. And here are my reinkers. So I'm using Passionate Pink reinker, a Wild Dandelion reinker, and a Jelly Bean Green reinker. So I'm going to talk about those in a bit. Now, this just came yesterday, the Botanical Duo die. And also this foliage fillers came too, and I had ordered all of these on the live when we had the launch last week, and I just knew right away that I wanted to put them in my cards because of all the leafery elements. So we're going to do some watercoloring, and we're going to die cut this super fun leafery element and add it into the card project. So that was my mystery thing I hadn't planned on doing, but decided when it arrived yesterday that that is what we were going to do. Okay, some other things I have here is some tidy towel, some connect glue, all the things you need to put your card project together. I have a water brush and some water. Okay, enough about the supplies. Everything is listed down below, but I do like to run through them. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to get started, and feel free to ask questions along the way. I think, there's 22 of us here. Holy smokes. Hello, everyone. I'm just so grateful everyone chooses to spend the time with me today. It's just, it just feels so good. Thank you so, so much. We're going to start with the stamping, okay? I'm going to stamp all of my floral elements first on some of the Gina K Designs layering white cardstock. So I've got all of my stamps kind of down here on my mat, and I'm just going to go ahead and walk through them and the colors. So this is the big honkin', hi Beth, big honkin' floral that's in the Choose Grace set. I'm going to stamp this one out in the tangerine twist. So let's go ahead and get that inked up. And I'm going to stamp all of these elements out first, and then just going to die cut them. Let's just go ahead and clean that off. Hi Cheryl, she says one more newbie here too in Florida. Well, hello, welcome. I'm so grateful you're joining me today. Love it, just love it. I just love connecting with you all. It makes me so happy that you take. Hi Ruth. Hello Ruth. It's so good to see you. And Catherine. I just get so excited I end up pausing and saying hello to everyone. Hi Joan. I'm still not sure leafery is a word, but now I use it all the time. Joan, leafery is not a word. I made it up and I use it all the time. And instead of saying botanicals, in all of my watercolor videos on this channel too, I say leafery, and I just love it. I think it's whimsical and fun and joyful, so I just use it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stamp out all of my elements that are passionate pink, which all in one shot. So I've got this pick element here. This is a really fun stamp. I just love this heart stamp from the Whimsy and Wonder set. There's lots that you could do with it and make it kind of fun. I'm just going to go ahead and stamp it down in that passionate pink. Hi Debbie, your first time here. Thank you so much for joining. And I'm just going to go ahead and stamp that out. I'm stamping out all of my elements for the card first. And then we're going to get into the juicy parts. Okay, I've got this element right here. Lisa's favorite words, wonky and leafery. That's so true. So true. Gina's using leafery as well. That's funny because she kind of laughs when I use it, and when I text her things like check out the leafery, check out this. So I guess it's sticking. It's gonna be part of our dictionary of words soon, right? Okay, this is a really fun open line bloom element from the Choose Grace set. And I'm inking that up in the passionate pink. I'm trying to give myself some room around these elements because I am going to run them through the die cutter. And what I'm doing in this card is a combination of silhouette images, so like solid images, and line art images. So super fun. And it adds some contrast to the card. This is the whole thing that I keep talking about. We're adding some contrast and visual interest, to the card project. Okay, I'm going to bring in some innocent pink here. I'm going to change up my color a bit and grab, where is my other floral here? Looks like I forgot to grab it out. I did. Forgot to grab, I want this solid floral right here. So we've got that mix of solid florals and line art images. I'm going to just pop that on a smaller block here. Made up words make me think of my dad, and that makes me smile. Oh, Sue, that's so sweet. I make up a lot of words just because I think it's fun. We're going to have some joy in our lives, right? Make up words and have some fun with it. Okay, so I have all of these elements stamped out, and I don't want to jam a few more things on here. I'm going to leave that kind of free. I'm going to bring in another piece of the layering white cardstock so that I can start to do all of the leafery elements. So if you've been following me for a while, and many of you have, you know that in pretty much every stamp set I have leafery in the stamp sets. or what I call builder pieces, filler pieces, things that you can add to your project that adds that extra little bit of leafery. Now, all of these leafery elements, and I think this would be fun to do a video for, are all in proportion to each other across all the stamp sets. You could build a really fun wreath or any kind of leafery element with all of those things across the stamp sets. Just super fun. I'm going to ink this one up. This leafery element is from the Whimsy and Wonder set. Ink that up. I'm going to ink up her sister, which is from the set as well, but just a little bit bigger. And I'm using Jelly Bean Green for this. No, that's not true. Fresh Asparagus. I'm using Fresh Asparagus. This is a bit of a darker green. Usually I use Jelly Bean Green. This is darker, and we've got all of these pinks, all these bright pinks. So I want to ground my leafery a little bit in a darker green. So I'm going to grab this piece. This is a really fun whimsical leaf element from the Choose Grace set. I'm going to ink that one up, stamp that down. And now for our pop of color for the leafery, I'm going to change it up and not do it in this green. I'm going to grab, let's see, what do I got here? I'm going to grab, upside down, turquoise sea. I'm going to grab my turquoise sea, ink that up, and stamp that down. So for my color palette here, I've got a lot of really bright colors, which is they're gonna get amplified even more when we start to do the watercoloring, and that's coming next. So got all these bright colors here. This innocent pink is lighter, so it kind of helps add some contrast here. And then we've got our dark leafery elements, and then this pop of turquoise that gives us a little bit more whimsy going on. Okay, got all of my floral stamped elements done. Now we're going to go into, before we cut them, we're going to go into stamping out the cup element from the Choose Grace set. You can see mine is starting to get loved. I need to kind of clean her up a little bit. Now, if you wanted some contrast with this, so if you take a look at the card here, I've stamped her out in Passionate Pink, and I'm going to do that again. But if you wanted some contrast for your card, you could stamp her out in Obsidian. But I'm going, the Amalgam Obsidian. I'm going to stamp her out in Passionate Pink, and then I'm going to talk you through why I'm doing that. So I'm going to stamp, got that ink, there we go. Here is my cold press paper card base. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp this stamp down, the cup stamp down right on the cold press. Now I've got a really nice impression here, but I'm not super worried about making a nice impression, because we're going to start to come in and watercolor and do a technique called wet into wet watercolor, and I'm going to talk about using reinkers and talk. So now we're into the watercolor lesson, folks. Here we go. Okay. Hi Dawn. Hello. More people are popping in. We're at 34 people in here. I am so excited. Thanks so much for joining me. Okay. Now we're going to talk about liquid watercolor. So these are Gina K Designs reinkers, meant to re-ink your pads. Re-ink your stamp pads. I like using them as a watercolor medium too, and you can do this with any kind of reinker that you have across all different kinds of brands. Essentially, it's a liquid. It can act as a liquid watercolor. The ink in here is dye based, but it is water reactive, so we can get a lot of techniques going. I'm going to pull in a few more things to show you. Other liquid watercolors. Liquid watercolors are fun because they're super, super vibrant. So here is the Dr. P.H. Martin's brand in Alpine Rose. This is Radiant Concentrated Watercolor. Love using this. It's super bright. You can see see the pigment that is settled to the bottom. This is a little bit different than using a re-inker, but if you've got your re-inkers, you can get the same effects and same techniques that you would from a liquid watercolor. Here is the Dr. P.H. Martin's. This is Spectralite, so this is a little bit different. This is an intense watercolor. And then here's like an aqua ink. It's a watercolor ink. This is Marabou. There's all different kinds of brands of liquid watercolor out there. And essentially, you can get the technique that we're going to do, you can do with any of those brands. But how fun is it that if you already have in your stash, your re-inkers, how fun is it to just use them as a watercolor medium? So that's what we're going to do today. So I've got this little porcelain dish here. I've got 2 porcelain dishes, but I've got this little porcelain dish here. I'm going to take a drop of this Passionate Pink. Just 1 drop, because really 1 or 2 drops is all you need. I'm going to go in. I've got some water here. I've got a paintbrush. This is a number 6 round. Just realized I had my glasses on again, and that's why I couldn't see. I know that happens every live, but okay. So this is a number 6 round. Now, I've already stamped down the cup. We are going to watercolor and add some washy watercolor inside the cup. The technique that I'm using is called wet on wet. Okay, so I'm coming in here and I'm painting water into the cup and getting that whole inside of the space here wet. Now you can see what's happening. The Gina K, the Passionate Pink ink, is water reactive. So ladies, and look at what we can do here. We're going to add more color to this, but if you really liked a light wash of color, you could just stamp your outline and then take your paintbrush to it and just activate it. And you get this like really light wash of watercolor look and feel just from your stamped image. But I'm going to take it another step further. That's a super fun and easy way to do this watercolor technique. I'm going to clean off my brush. Now, my brush is wet. My paper is wet. I'm adding some water. Oh, look at how juicy. Look at how juicy that is. I'm adding some water to that re-inker. So that 1 little drop, look at that. A little goes a long way. And this will dry in this porcelain little, what is this, a little cup. This will dry here. And guess what? You don't have to clean it off. You can just keep it there. When it dries, all you need to do is add water to it and reactivate it. So super cool. Okay, my paper is wet. I'm going to turn it to the light so that you can see. My paper is wet. My brush is wet. It's full of this juicy pigment. I'm going to start from this side. The Passionate Pink, I'm going to start from this side, and I'm just going to start dropping in color. And watch. Look at how this Gina K re-inker reacts to that water. It just starts whoosh, exploding across the paper. I really don't have to manipulate it that much. This is probably one of the easiest watercolor techniques you could ever do. You basically just let the water and the ink do its thing. I'm just gonna coax this a little bit over. I'm really digging this, like a little bit of the white coming through with the paper. But I'm going to get some more, clean off my brush, get some more of this re-inker, and I'm gonna drop another drop right here. So I'm basically just adding a lot of layers over to the right side of this cup. while everything is wet. So you can start to see that intensity of the color. This is super intense, and you can see that I did not use much. I'm going to kind of coax that across a little bit with the water. Now remember, watercolor will only go where the water is. Okay, so see how it's only moving? I'm moving it around back and forth, but right there where the water is. Dawn just asked a quick question. So does this technique work best then on a cold press paper? Yes, and I was just getting ready to get to that. Cold press paper, especially 100% cotton cold press paper, is ready at a thirsty paper. It's ready to take on any kind of juice you want to throw at it. And that's why I love it. I'm going to take the wild dandelion here and pop a little dot right there. It is like magic, but it's a thirsty paper. So it can take a lot of water. It can take a lot of watercolor, and it won't pill up. The hot press paper, you could do this technique on the hot press paper if you wanted to. You can do washy washy techniques there, but it won't be as smoothie. It'll be a little more blotchy because the watercolor doesn't go into the fibers of the paper and spread like it does with the cold press paper. Okay, I've got a little bit of the wild dandelion here, and I'm grabbing just a smidge of it. And in the spots, I'm going to bring this up a little closer to the camera and show you. In the spots that are wet, I'm dropping some of that wild dandelion in. And just look at it. It just goes boosh. It just spreads. It goes exactly where I put it. Look, I'm going to put a little dot. So I'm kind of creating like these little polka dots. Just love it. And I can manipulate it a little bit because see, it only wants to go where the water is. Now, up in this corner here, I got a little too much. So I'm going to just take a little tissue here and just kind of take some of it out. I am loving the way this is looking. Loving the way this is looking. Okay, I'm going to let this dry. Let it completely dry. And I might have to hit it with a heat tool, which is fine. I'm going to put it over here. It's a little intense. I kind of wanted a little bit more of a variation now that I think about it. So I'm going to I'm cleaning off my brush. And it's completely, my brush is wet, but there's no pigment in it. Okay, there's no ink. I love the exploding dots too, Sue. I'm going to come and take my wet brush and just kind of take away some of that color. And just by putting the brush into my piece here, I'm just wiping the brush across, I'm able to pull away or lift out some of that color. Now, the difference between inks and like watercolor tubes or pans with this technique is that inks are gonna, once you put them down, they're gonna want to stay where they are. Now, we saw them sploosh and whoosh across the cup, and they're gonna do that. They're gonna go wherever the water is, but once they're on here, they're a little harder to lift off because they're very staining, because they're an ink, okay? But yikes. But I think it's super fun in our paper crafting projects and our card projects, because we can get these massively vibrant looks by using the supplies that we've already purchased, right, for our ink pads. Now, I'm using re-inkers today, but you could use the pad the same way by putting the pad down like on your mat and lifting that color up and using it. It'll be a little less intense as it would be if you used the ring inkers or a liquid watercolor. Okay, so I'm going to put this aside because we're going to do some stamping over top of this too. I'm going to put this aside and let that dry. And now I'm going to put that color over here. Now we're going to do this little mystery technique. We're going to do a wash of color. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about mixing your re-inkers to create different colors. So we've got jelly bean green and wild dandelion. I just love wild dandelion. I seem to squeeze wild dandelion into every single project. Hi, Sue. Just joining. Lisa, you are my favorite. Oh, Sue, you're so sweet. Thank you. Okay, another drop of wild dandelion. And I'm using very, very little. So if you've invested in re-inkers for your ink pads and you want to watercolor with them, just know this bottle is going to go a long way to do both for you. So I have a piece of watercolor paper. We're going to do that wet into wet technique again. And I'm going to show you because we're going to create a wash of color for our botanical die cut that we're going to add to the card. So I've got my brushes clean. I've got a lot of water on my brush. It's a bit drippy. And I'm just painting on water. Now, this paper is so thirsty. And you can see how much water I'm painting on it, but you can see how it just really takes on a lot of water. And then it gets dry. It gets dry quick because this paper is super thirsty. 100% cotton watercolor papers are some of the thirstiest papers out there. There's lots of different brands. I shared that I'm using Strathmore today. I want to get this good and wet so you can see that shine. I'm using Strathmore because I think it's a really great brand to use for our, I'm going to bring it back in here, for our paper crafting projects. This Strathmore Ready Cut watercolor, it's already cut to a 5x7. Super easy to work with it for your paper crafting projects. I love the hot press. I love the cold press. It's just a great quality paper and an affordable price for our paper crafting projects. Okay, I'm cleaning off my brush now. I'm going to let's bring this into the frame so everybody can see it. Now look at that jelly bean green. It just exploded like immediately. And look at it just, explode across that watercolor. Across the water. I'm going to go back from the bottom up with the wild dandelion. Look at it. It just went whoosh. It just traveled and followed right into the color here. Now in the middle where they meet, I'm going to just add a little more of the jelly bean green and a little more of the wild dandelion. And just kind of do a little color mix in the middle. So you get more of like a yellow green in the middle. Look at that. So super intense and super, super vibrant using those inks. Now, I want to show you how similar. I'm going to grab another piece of watercolor paper. Let's grab another piece because I just got this idea. I'm going to show you how similar the effects are with other liquid watercolor brands that I showed you a minute ago. I will pull in this one, the Alpine Rose from Dr. P.H. Martin's, just to show you that, if you're already investing in your re-inkers and you want to do this technique, use your re-inkers. You don't have to go out and buy like the latest and greatest in liquid watercolor, but this is a liquid watercolor. So let's go ahead. I'm going to show you how it can be. It's very, very similar. The technique is very, very similar. Let's see. Let's get some of this out. If I can get this, I got a little clog here. So let's go ahead. Whoa, poured out some on my glass mat here. And I'm going to do the same technique with this Alpine Rose. I'm going to come across my piece of watercolor. And the reason why I'm sharing this technique with you today is that I'm going to use them for the die cuts, right? So you can make these like kind of custom watercolor backgrounds with some watercolor paper, some water, some ink, and then you can use your dies. And then you have your custom background that kind of fits the color palette of what you're doing. And it's just a fun artsy technique without a lot of overwhelm, right? Without a lot of extra supplies. Okay, I'm lifting up this liquid watercolor and you can see kind of the same thing happens with this liquid watercolor as it did with the Gina K re-inkers. And I'm able to move it. It stays and spiders out, but I'm able to move it just like I would with the Gina K re-inkers. So that's Alpine Rose, and that's an artist grade, those radiant watercolors. They will fade, you know, they are a dye based, very, very similar to the re-inkers. I'm going to go in here and pick up some of our Passionate Pink and look and just kind of drop that in with it. So it does the same thing. I love this spidering. So fun. So super fun washy watercolor technique that you can use. I'm now playing because I'm just dropping in the color. That you can use for your paper crafting projects. This is a fun background. I'm going to keep it. And I'm going to end up using it for something else down the road. If I don't lose it, right? And put it in a special place. I have this place in my office studio called the special place. It's where I've put all the things that I can't find. Can anyone relate? I literally put things in places so that I'll remember where I put them. And then they're gone. They're totally gone. So, happens a lot. Okay, I'm going to pick up this color because I don't want this Alpine Rose to show up on all of my other things. Okay, so I'm going to bring back in the piece that we watercolored with the re-inkers. Did anybody have any questions about the re-inkers and watercoloring with them? Because if you do, just pop them in the chat and I'll answer them along the way. Now, I love that variation of color we're getting. Look at the intensity of the color. It is vibrant, super, super vibrant. Now, I've got my two watercolor pieces. This piece is still drying a little bit. I'm going to go in and I'm going to do, let's see, where are we? Oh, I know what I'm going to do. Okay, we're going to take, bring back in all of my elements here. Now, I did pre-die cut some of these elements off camera so that we could keep moving along. So here's the die, the Botanical Duo die. And we're just going to run this through the die cutter using this really, Kathy just said, I have the same special place in my craft room. Yeah, I think we all do. I'm going to run this through the die cutter with my watercolor wash piece and pull that out. And I've run all of my elements through the die cutter as well. So let's take a look at all of our die cut pieces together. I love them. Oh, look at all of them. They're so pretty. All right, let's start with this. Look at that. Look at that watercolor background and this beautiful, delicate botanical die cut. Love it. So we've got our floral pick heart. We've got all of our floral elements here, all die cut out. Die cut, die cut. Here are our two leafery pieces. And here are the other two leafery pieces. And then we have the open line bloom. So I've got a lot of builder pieces here. So it's going to make it super fun. I'm going to pop this over here. Let's just clear out some space here so I don't spill anything on myself. Here's my Passionate Pink cardstock. I'm going to come in with some Connect glue. I like using this Connect glue. And I've said it before on a couple other lives. The reason why I like using it is because with tape runners, I am tape runner happy. So I end up, ooh, I just got a big blob of glue. I end up putting so much tape on things that it just gets out of hand. And like I just did the same thing with the glue. But I also like that this glue dries really well and it doesn't buckle my paper. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my card. Meanwhile, I've got glue on my fingers. Open up my card. I'm going to pop my layering piece here. And the glue also gives me a little, it's a little forgiving. And it gives me a little time to get it down onto the card base. Okay. Yeah, loving it. Okay, loving this. Sue says, I never would have tried this technique. Cool. I love it. The leafery is beautiful, Debbie said. And Wilma just shared she also has the same place in her craft room. You know, the place that we put things that we want to remember where we put them, but we have since forgotten them. Okay, we're going to start. We're going to build the card. We're getting right to it. Now, I'm going to pull out my... Oh, look at that. Look at that. I have 2 floral elements that are the same. We're going to be using this pink one. I'm going to start by putting in our 3 floral elements that just kind of anchor the lip of the cup. I've got some foam tape here, and we're going to tape them down. So I'm going to start with this one over on the right. And, Sue just said I use the glue the same way. Yes, I'm using the foam tape that's not super, super high. This is a 3M foam tape. And I'm just going to go ahead and pop my flowers down. And these become, because I'm using the foam tape, these just become the anchoring elements in my card to also allow me to put things behind them. I'm going to take this last wonky little flower. And, oops, it doesn't want to stick. Robin says you can't wait to try this. I can't wait to see what everyone creates. Remember, if you share any of your cards in the Gina K group or, you know, anywhere in your social media feeds, please tag me so I can see them and give you all the love, all the love. Okay, I've got my 3 florals here on the lip. So, and there's room here under to get things behind them. So that's why I take the floral, the tape and pop those main elements up so that I can get the other elements behind them. And many of you have heard me, if you've been following me for a while, I always say the stamps are the star of the show. You can see, now I love pattern papers. I design pattern papers. I love all the things, pattern paper and all the techniques and things. But what I really love is letting the stamps be the star of the show so that you can create layers with your stamps and your die cuts. So, okay. Gail just said, I love how you take the time to explain everything to all of us. It's just, Gail, it really is just kind of my style. You know, we can all make cards. We can all make lots of cards. But like the process and the technique and the design behind it is the kind of stuff that feels fun and joyful to me and a little bit nerdy. So I like, that's just kind of the way I am. And if I've taught live many, many times, and that's how I've taught, and I will continue to be that way. And I just love it. So I'm glad you're finding it helpful. Okay, so this die cut, now this wasn't in the original card, okay? But I cannot help myself because we've got all these solid elements, some of these open line elements, and I want to get this die cut in here. It's a little big, but I want to nest it back here. So I'm going to clip it probably like right there. Oops, right there. So I clipped off that little piece. I'm going to use that, and I'm going to nest it right back behind here. Oh, I am loving that. I'm just loving that. Loving it. Kathy just shared, I'm hoping to have my first ever Lisa Hetrick stamp set. That's so sweet. Very soon. I'm really excited to put the techniques in action. Oh, I'm excited. I cannot wait to see what you create. Also, don't forget, everyone on the live, for every stamp set, or if you're watching this on the replay, for every stamp set that I create, there is a technique, a card idea sheet. Let me just grab the latest card idea sheet for you so that you can see it. It's on my other. There's a card idea sheet that is free to you with 8 card ideas using the latest and greatest stamp set. Now, I have one of these for every single stamp set in my collection with Gina K Designs. You can get it for free on my website or in the Gina K group. And my website is indigojadeart.com. And when you get there, you'll see free downloads and shampoo. It's right there. You can grab everything that I have. It's a gift of grace from me to you. It's also in the link in the description down below. So you'll be able to find it there too. Okay. So big and super bold here. I've got this big honkin' leafery die cut coming out of the center. Now I'm just going to start adding some other elements in. And I'm going to start, I think I'm going to start with this little guy right here. And I'm just going to start popping the leafery elements in behind the flowers. And in this case, the die cut. And just start building the design. Now I've got this pick. I just love this heart pick. It's very folk arty looking in design. And it's also going to be a little bit too big. So I'm going to go ahead and clip her off a little bit. But I'm going to nest her right there behind that foliage, behind that die cut leafery. And she is going to show through that leafery element. I mean, she's also going to have that flower pick look to her. Ah, so fun. You know, those flowers that you'll buy like at the grocery store if you get them from, a florist. They always have those little floral picks in them that will say something on them like congratulations or something like that. That's what I was doing when I was creating that element there. A little floral pick. Okay. Catherine just asked, did you tell which watercolor technique you used on the inspiration sheets? Now, on the inspiration sheets, those are just, and Catherine was asking about these. I just put them in color and give some color palette combinations for you. This is just a printout. So this is just to give you an idea of how to layer the stamps. And you could use any technique you want to make that come alive. So I hope that's helpful. Okay, I've got this going. As far as my design's going, we've got whoosh, whoosh. We've got a whoosh here and a whoosh here. I'm going to come in, add a little bit more line art. I'm going to bring in, we've got a lot of silhouettes here, a lot of solid imagery. I'm going to pop this one right here to kind of create a little bit of contrast here between this super solid image. We've got this open line piece here. And now I'm going to come in with the other little leafery pieces. And we are doing a little floral arrangement. I kind of do that a lot with my stamps. We're doing little floral arrangements with all of the elements in these two stamp sets. And this die cut that I'm super obsessed about, this new Botanical die cut, I'm going to nest that kind of right there. I'm going to lift this little guy up just a smidge and kind of have them nest together. I'm also not putting glue behind. I'm letting that die cut just kind of flow. I'm not putting glue and making it like super solid and putting it down there. Now this is the little die cut piece that got cut off when I was nesting. So I'm going to add a little bit of glue to the tip. Now I tend to not put glue on the whole die cut. Where do I want to put this? I'm going to put this right here. Right under here. And I'm going to let it overlap a little. So it's sticking up a little bit. And it's got a little bit of dimension without a ton of height. Okay. You could stop here and it would be a happy, happy card. But I'm going to take it a little bit further because it's just what I do, right? I'm going to take it a little bit further. We've got our sentiment to put on. But in the stamp set, I've got this watercolor splatter stamp. Now, did I not bring that over here? I'm looking for wild dandelion, folks. Let me grab it. Here we go. I am going to ink up this splatter stamp with some wild dandelion. Gail just said, so appreciate when you mash sets together. Yes, I love it. I'm always thinking about how to mash them together, how we can use the things in our collection to get new looks, right? New look and feel for your card projects. Got some wild dandelion on that watercolor splatter, and I'm going to stamp it down right here over top of the cup and adding that other element of texture into the cup. It's very subtle because the watercolor technique that we did here, but it adds an extra layer of texture without the height. And I know if you've been following me for a while, I say that all the time, adding texture without the height. Okay, now I've got something else I want to add here. I've got in the stamp sets, I talked about like all the different filler elements that I tend to build into the stamp sets to add a little bit of extra something to your project. This is one of those pieces. This is just one of those little filler flower elements that I am going to add with the tangerine twist, and it is going to give us an extra little pop of color. I'm going to come up here. I'm going to start right here. I'm going to go out here, and it's like another flower blooming and popping up right from behind. I'm going to come over here and add one right here. Excuse me. Get a little drink here. Okay, so I added this, and it went off the card's edge, the layering base, and it went into the pink, and I love it. It kind of helps with the exploding flower look and feel. Now this one, I didn't give myself a ton of room, but I want to create this little image of three things kind of drawing your eye around the card. And because that orange is a really fun pop of color, we've got here, here, and here, and it kind of keeps your eye moving around the design of the card. And it's just a really whimsical way to add to it. All right, I'm digging this card the way it looks, but we've got to add a sentiment, right? And there's also another little thing. I want to add these little X's in just as another little grounding element. All right, I think I'm going to pop, I want it to go over into the thank you a little. Let's do thank you. Let's just stick with the plan, Lisa. Stick with the plan. I'm going to do thank you. And I'm going to have the thank be inside the cup and the you outside the cup. And the only way I'm going to be able to pull this off really well is to use a really dark black ink. So I'm using Obsidian, Amalgam. I'm going to ink this up, getting it nice and juicy. And I'm going to go rogue, just going in. If I mess it up, I mess it up. We're just going in. I'm going to give it a little bit of even pressure, and then shampoo. There it is. It's a little off, I think. It looks good. We're going with it. We're going with it. It looks like it's a little bit off, but that's okay. Here's how I'm going to ground that look. And here's why I'm adding so much black. I'm going to talk through the design part of adding so much black here too. I've got these little X's, which are like little staples in this Whimsy and Wonder set. Love them. That Whimsy and Wonder set is so fun. Here's one of the cards from the Whimsy and Wonder set. It's got that. This is probably, out of all the things, all the leafery, all the floral picks, all the fun things in that set, this little piece of washi tape stamp is probably my favorite. I know it's the tiniest thing, but it's my super fave, and I just love it. All right, I've got these little staples. I'm going to grab my Obsidian and ink that up. And I'm going to just stamp that right underneath the U. And what it does is it just kind of adds another little extra something. little extra texture. It helps draw your eye to the sentiment. It's also kind of following that angle that we've got going here. We're going around the card, around, and we get to our sentiment, and we've seen all the beautiful botanical pieces. Just got a little nerdy there. Sorry about that. Loving this. Now, it needs its last little bit. Okay. You could go with the card the way it is and it would be fantastic. Loving it. Not a lot of height. Look at all that variation of color with some darks and some lights and super bright colors, but adding that botanical duo die cut with the watercolor piece that we created, it just adds a little something extra to the contrast of the card. Now I'm going to come in. I've got these enamel accents. This is something I forgot that I've had in my stash, but they're really fun. And the reason why I like them is I always do this on my hand first, because did you see that? It just blooped. So if you go right to your card right away, you end up getting a bloop. So I always just kind of get this little baby activated, right? So that I don't bloop it all over my card. I'm going to come in and I'm going to add little black dots to the center of my flowers. These enamel accents, you could use anything. You could even use like a black pen if you wanted. But the reason why I'm using the black enamel is I want to, we've got the black sentiment here in the black obsidian. By just adding this little bit of black, you can already see we're getting some visual contrast in the card. We're also drawing some attention to the thank you sentiment. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add, see that? I just blooped a little dot around the card elements. I've got 1, 2. I'm going to come over here, do a 3. So I'm kind of in my order of 3s here. But then I'm going to come up here, and I'm a lefty. Sorry about that. Kind of gets in the way. And add 4 more little bloops up at the top to kind of finish this card off. Ah, I am loving it. I am loving all this texture and dimension without all the height. Look at that. You could still mail that and not make the post office angry with you, right? Oh, this card just came out so fun. I'm going to go ahead and move over to the front camera so we can chat for a minute. And yeah, that was super fun. I hope you really got a lot out of that watercolor technique, which was with the re-inkers, and kind of learned a little bit today using your re-inkers or using the things in your stash, using them for as a watercolor medium. Kathy just shared, I'm learning so much from you. I'm going to have to take notes. That's why we have the replay, right? So you can fast forward, go back, look at the things that you want to look at, and just for the joy, just have so much fun doing it. I love sharing watercolor techniques with you all. It is something I love doing. I love being able to come in here live and do that with you. I'm loving the way this card turned out today. It's so different than like my original design. That just adding that botanical duo piece just changed the whole dynamic of the card. I just love it. So I hope you got a lot of enjoyment out of today's tutorial. It was super fun, and I'm so grateful to you for joining me. If you need to watch this on the replay will be here live on YouTube. It'll also be on my blog. I'll be going into the group and sharing the replay as well. If you want to grab any of the downloads, the free downloads for all of my Gina K sets, you can go get them from my website at indigojadeart.com. And when you go there, there's a free downloads. You can click on it. You can get them all right there too. And yeah, if you're interested in getting more information from me, you can also join my email list. I send out the tutorials that I do. I send out a lot of extra subscriber kind of fun things. And I also share updates and coupon codes and things for classes that I offer in my online classroom. So if you're just interested in tapping into that kind of information, you could also head on over to indigojadeart.com and hit the subscribe button, and it will be there for you. Now, all of my tutorials all are here on YouTube. I have like over 200 some tutorials, lots of card tutorials, lots of watercolor tutorials. I like being able to take watercolor and break it down for everyone in the context of our card making and our paper crafting projects, because we have all these supplies and we want to figure out how to use them together. So, um, again, just so grateful that all of you could join me today. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. And you go into the weekend inspired to craft your joy. And I'm not sure if I'm going to be back next week with a live. I'm thinking about it, but it's also the Friday before Easter, and I know that a lot of people have a lot of things going on. So I'll keep you posted. And again, thanks so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you on the next live or the next video. If you have any questions and you're watching this on the replay, please feel free to put them in the comments. Or if you were here with me live and you're watching it again on the replay, go ahead and put your comments in the live as well, friends. So thanks so much. I'm so grateful that you took the time with me today. We did do this card in an hour with a little of 1 minute over. So I try to keep mindful of your time, and I'm just so grateful you could join me. So have a great weekend, and I'll see you next time.